Everyone has moments in life they can't just stop thinking about. They can be embarrassing things, like that one time you face planted in front of a group of teenagers, or something amazing like the first time you hosted your family for the holidays. And on Baby, This is Keke Palmer, hosted by me, Keke Palmer, and presented by BMW, we know to savor the good memories and let go of the bad. And one thing everyone remembers fondly is their first time behind the wheel of a BMW. So come join me and BMW this summer as we explore pop culture moments and topics you just can't stop thinking about on Baby, This is Keke Palmer, sponsored by BMW, the ultimate driving machine.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th.
We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
And welcome back to Scarred for Life, the podcast where we open up old wounds by looking back at the films that scared us as kids. I'm Terry.
And I'm Mary Beth.
And each episode, our special guest brings with them a movie that traumatized them as a child.
This week, our guest is Andrew LaSane. He's a freelance artist and writer with bylines all over the internet, including at Colossal, Mental Floss, Complex, and more. When he's not writing, he's customizing sneakers and footwear with incredible hand-painted horror designs. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Oh, that was awesome. Hey.
So before we do kind of get to your creative stuff, because I got to know about your horror designs, but can you take us back to the beginning? How did you get introduced to horror?
Actually, I was trying to do homework for this very occasion because my memory is terrible. Apparently, so is the memory of my mother, who was no help in this situation.
Oh,
but yeah, it's always been horror for my family. It's me, my mom, and my sister, and like, as long as I can remember, we've been watching horror movies or like horror adjacent stuff. My mom was really big into Tales from the Crypt.
Oh yeah,
so we watched that a lot. And cool. I know recently on the podcast, Terry, you mentioned like the Simpsons references.
Yeah,
to horror movies. Yeah, that was like life for a really long time. So I got references to horror movies long before I actually saw a lot of them. As far as like the actual movies, my mom never really like stopped us from watching anything. It was like It was just me, my mom, and my sister. So whatever she watched, we watched basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were really young watching like Candyman and Pumpkinhead and like lots of.
Oh my God, Pumpkinhead!
Yeah.
That's another movie I'd love to talk about on the podcast sometime. I love that. I love that movie. Do you remember what you probably, you said your memory's a little shoddy, but do you remember what your first horror movie was?
I don't. I remember teasing my sister. My sister's 13 months older than me, so we're basically the same age. Oh. But I remember she was really afraid of Leprechaun.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
So I don't know if it was the first one, but we were pretty young when we saw that.
Oh,
isn't it
funny? Isn't it funny the movies that scare you when you're a kid and you watch them and you're like, oh, that was Leprechaun. Like that was the movie that like gave me nightmares and terrified me.
There's still some really dark stuff in it, but yeah, it's
there are some of the kills in that were actually really kind of violent from what I remember. It's been so long since I've seen it, but I just remember like a lot of the kind of gory kills.
Yeah, it's something for a kid to be watching.
So aside from the movie we're talking about today, do you remember any other films that really scared you as a kid?
Yeah. I mean, have you guys ever seen The First Power?
First Power.
No.
That sounds familiar to me.
I know Lou Diamond Phillips is in it, and like I don't know who else, but
okay, I've not seen this one, but the poster, I remember seeing the poster art in the VHS, aisle and stuff, and being terrified of it.
Yeah, there was some scenes in that were really spooky. It's like a soul hopping movie, so kind of like Fallen with Denzel Washington, but it's like the guy, I think he's like a serial killer, and he can like put his like soul in different bodies. But there's this one scene where like a woman like flies up to like a window, but they're like in like a skyscraper, so she like shouldn't be that high, and she just like twirls up to the window, and it's like a homeless woman, and it's really, really terrifying. So it's like stuff like that. Obviously, to this day, I can't watch the scene in Gremlins where he gets wet and just like his skin bubbles. Like that just creeps me out for some reason. Yeah, it's like obviously Gremlins is not terrifying, but yeah, certain scenes and things just really got under my skin when I was little.
Okay, but I will say, Gremlins is deceptively terrifying, especially when you're like, oh, it's a cute Christmas like movie, and then you watch it and you're like, holy shit, this is actually rather gory.
Yeah.
Well, and that scene in particular, I definitely feel like it references the idea of body horror, because you have like these kind of bubbles popping on his back. It's really gross.
It is. It's so weird because now I think I gravitate towards like special effects more than anything now. Mm-hmm. Just like, and that's like an awesome effect. But when I was a kid, I just I couldn't take it. It was like too real for me.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But then we were also watching like Puppet Master and Exorcist and Thinner and like all these like Stephen King movies and a lot of other really weird shit. So I don't know why.
It's funny when you think about how like certain things will just bother you when you could also be watching A Nightmare on Elm Street or Thinner or something with like really gross effects, and it's like, oh, this is really cool. That's a weird. I wonder what causes that kind of divide.
There's some deep psychology there that I am not aware of.
What draws you to the horror genre now as an adult?
I don't really know. It's not one particular thing. I think this was you, Terry, on Twitter at one point. My sister is the kind of person who, if it's like any like thriller aspect to the movie, she like her brain starts turning like right at the beginning, and she wants to figure everything out.
Yeah,
but I'm glad that I'm not that kind of person. Like the most obvious shit in the movie could go right over my head, and I'm just like in it for the experience.
Yep.
And
I envy that.
It's awesome. It's weird because I went to college. I was a American Studies major in undergrad, and then I got my master's in like media, culture, and communications.
Oh, cool.
So like when I was in school, I like wrote a lot about like media and TV and movies and stuff, and like doing deep analyses and all that. But it's like now luckily I can still just like turn that part off when I watch movies. So I don't really know there's like not one particular genre that I like more than others. It's just like story basically is the main thing that pairs all my favorite horror movies together now.
Yeah, I'm the same way with turning my brain off. I just like, I could do it, but it's like, I just want to enjoy it.
Yeah, it is a blessing. I'm glad I'm not like a critic, because I don't understand how some people just like watch everything with a critical eye. It seems like it would take away from it, but
it's exhausting.
Yeah, it's exhausting. Like I'll turn off my brain to like not solve the end, but I will not turn off the part of my brain that's like, how could I pitch this to another website? It's a curse. It really sucks.
I definitely understand. As someone who like freelanced for many, many years, it's like you're always thinking of that next job.
It's, again, a blessing and a curse. Fun to write, but also like I cannot watch a movie without being like, what can I write about this next? Oh my God.
Or you get to the point where it's like you're constantly searching out things because you know you can write about it instead of watching other things. Like I haven't watched Minari yet, So yeah.
Me either.
Oh my God, Minari is so good. Anyway,
I just watched. This is not horror related at all, but I just watched Raya and the Last Dragon recently.
How was that?
It's
good. It hit me right in the feels. So
yeah,
it looks so good.
It is really good,
and it looks gorgeous.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that I wish I could have seen on the big screen, but
it's the
world we live in.
Do you ever still get like that childhood fear watching horror as an adult?
Sometimes I think the last time it happened was with Host, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
I've realized about myself recently that I don't normally get like quote unquote scared anymore, but I'll find myself, if something's like making me uncomfortable, it'll be the moment that I like pick up my phone and start looking at Instagram for no reason, like in the middle of a movie. It's like you do anything to distract yourself from like when things get really real in movies.
I do something similar. I'm like, oh, well, if I'm not looking, I don't have to jump.
Yeah. That's the funny thing. My mom, like I said, she is the one who like basically got us into horror movies, like my mom and my aunt. But now that I'm older and I try to watch horror movies with my mom, I see her just like hiding her face a lot, and I wonder if she did that when we were kids, and I just didn't notice. It's like, why are you watching the movie? You're just gonna like not watch half the movie.
I was thinking you guys are talking about like the habits that you do for to like distract you. I find myself that like I have tried so hard to not bite my nails, but if I get into a movie where it's like intense, I will find myself unconsciously biting my nails, and then I'll end up getting rid of like 3 weeks worth of like work on not chewing my fucking nails.
I'm the same way. Like, I still am dealing with that, but like I will, especially in movie theaters. Like, it happens a lot in movie theaters because I can't like distract myself with my phone, and so I just like start chewing on my fingernails, and I'm like, and that's how I know if it was like a really good horror movie, depending on like how gross my hands look. That's really gross, but you know.
Yeah, in theaters, I think I start watching other people. I'm like I don't want to sound like some like macho guy. I obviously still get scared of things, but it's mostly like enjoyment of like the fear of other people around me. Because there's always, I'm not like a screamer, but there's always that one person who's like hiding behind the seat or like about to cry when
I love those people.
It's so good.
Oh my God. What was the last movie? Like, I know it's been a year since any of us have been in an actual theater, but like, what was a really good theater experience you had where that happened? I always love hearing about that.
I think it might have been Hereditary, but I saw that in theaters. I think I saw that in theaters 3 times, so I don't really remember I obviously didn't look around a lot the first time, but the second and third times, it's like the scene where she's in the corner.
Oh, this is the best.
That is the best scene to introduce people to, where it's like you're just waiting for them to see it.
Yeah, in a movie theater, and like you can hear when people notice because the sound just like goes around. It's so good.
Yes, that was like my favorite theater experience. Like, everyone together was just like loving it, but also hating it, and like having a good time, and like it was silent for a lot of it, and then like especially with that part where she's in the corner, everyone was like, oh, what the fuck?
It's like that, and I guess more recently it was Coco Day, or Coco Dow, however you want to say it. Yes. I saw that at a free screening at IFC here in Manhattan, and it's like that movie is just so like relentless, and like the same thing happens over and over, obviously. So it's like at certain parts I was getting uncomfortable, but then it was like older women. It's a really weird thing to see a movie with a crowd that's seeing it for free, because it's a very different like group of people.
Yeah,
they probably had no fucking idea what they were getting into either. Like,
especially with that movie, I didn't have an idea what I was getting into.
I don't think anyone ever does when they watch that movie.
Oh God,
for better or for worse.
When certain things happen in that movie, just like you're cringing so hard, and like you can't go anywhere or do anything. But yeah, the reactions of people around me made it way more enjoyable.
I kind of want to see that movie with an audience now. I've only ever seen it like on screeners.
Yeah, I watched it as a screener, and I was reacting to it. I was like sitting in my living room, like, what? Like, I was doing like loud reactions. So
yeah, I've always been curious. I've gotten a couple screeners in my life just from like work stuff, but I'm really curious like what the difference is for people who see like most movies on, well, I guess now that's everyone, but people who see most movies on screeners rather than in a theater experience, because obviously there's some movies that play well at home, but it seems like a lot is lost when you're just like, especially when there's like watermarks and shit on the screen.
Yeah, it's not my favorite way, but like it's also the best way to cover festivals when you're poor. Like can't really travel. Like they have been like a lifesaver in that regard, and sometimes like some of the movies that I cover aren't in theaters either. But like when theaters were happening, I still went to theaters quite a bit to watch movies. But it feels like a distant. I was like, wait, when was the last time I went to a movie theater? But the watermarks do detract depending on who gives them to you.
Annoying. I don't
like your name giant in the middle, and you're like, I can't see anything. Like,
I'll be
what
honest.
is happening?
Property, it's like, we know. I'm not like gonna leak your movie. Just chill out.
I'll be honest. My review of Haunt was probably adversely affected because there was a giant from Entertainment One, which is the longest name ever, just across the entire middle screen of the TV, and I'm like, how am I supposed to get into this movie?
Yeah,
when that's what I'm staring at.
That, and well, this is, I guess, to a lesser extent, but I feel that sometimes with foreign films too, like I can't physically read and like pay full attention to something at the same time. Like I mean, just not like to rag on movies with subtitles, obviously, but I can't, like, I feel like there's a disconnect with my brain when my eyes are like moving across the bottom of the screen and you can't watch like emotion on people's faces and stuff. So but screeners are just like a different level of like annoyance with that, because like whatever they're putting on the screen is not like relevant to the plot of the movie, obviously.
I don't know, Entertainment One was very relevant to the plot of Haunt.
It's just like, anyway, it is very frustrating, but also like sometimes you're like, all right, I'll deal with it. But then when they're that big, you're like, there's no reason for this. Like, and a lot of the time movies, like, I haven't watched like a bigger release that has that on there. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's a trust there with critics. They're not going to like leak. Well, hopefully they're not going to leak your shit. Like, I would hope that everyone would be respectful, but
yeah, just as a disclaimer, if any studios are listening to this, still send Terry and Mary Beth all the screeners.
Yes, please.
They deserve them.
I'll even read it, even if there's a giant Entertainment One in front of it. I promise. So, do you have a favorite horror movie as an adult?
Ooh, I fluctuate between The Thing and The Shining. I know, Terry, you're not a huge Shining fan. But
I'll meet you halfway, though, because I love The Thing.
Yeah, those are two damn near perfect movies, in my opinion. I will watch them any time of day. They're so good.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, Steve, my partner Steve and I will just be like, hey, want to watch The Thing? Like, it's our go-to, like, hey, want to watch it in like the middle of the day? It's the best movie.
It's so good. And also, it's a weird double-edged thing that I'm dealing with right now, because I've been supposed to, I know we're going to talk about like my shoes in a bit, but someone asked me to do a pair of The Thing themed customs. And I've been struggling with the design, even though I like know the movie like the back of my hand, and I've seen it like 10,000 times. But it's like trying to tell, not really tell the story of the movie, but trying to like encapsulate everything that the movie is in like 2 images or whatever on the shoe is just so fucking weird.
Well, and there's like so many iconic images in that movie.
Right,
You're
exactly.
like, which ones
like,
do I fucking pick?
Right. I would need to do like 20 different shoes just for that one movie.
Right. I mean, I don't really see a problem with that, though.
Yeah, true.
Just like a line of custom The Thing shoes. Oh, yeah. I would purchase them.
That would be sick.
So, I mean, you kind of brought it up. So how did you turn your love into shoes into something creative?
I don't know, to tell you the truth. I guess you guys can't see me right now, but there's like maybe 65 shoes behind me, and then
oh my god,
the reason I'm not recording,
like personal pairs of shoes.
Personal pairs.
Okay, cool.
And the reason I'm not recording in the only closet in my apartment, because there's like another 40 or 50 in there. So but like God. At a point, I think I started customizing in 2006 or 2007. I started college in 2006. It was like around that time, but it's more of it was like necessity, because like obviously I can keep buying shoes as long as like there's some money in my pocket.
Right.
But like at some point, like the brands aren't making the things that I want on my shoes. And it gets annoying as a quote unquote sneakerhead when it doesn't matter how limited the shoes are. There's always someone else who's wearing the shoes. And it's really, really sad when you like pull out this really crispy pair of shoes and like walk down the block and you see like 3 people wearing the same shit. It's like, it's heartbreaking. So yeah, at some point, I mean, I've always done like some form of art, I guess, even though I failed as an art minor in college, but that's a different story. And then at some point I just like decided that I wanted to combine my art with shoes and like make one of a kind things that no one else was going to have. And then at some point people started seeing that and they wanted me to do the same for them.
Well, I feel like the horror genre in particular is such a good area for custom design, like whether it's shoes or whether it's like you had mentioned at one point, maybe customizing a microphone or something like that. Like, I think that horror and those images and anything really kind of goes together much more than, well, any other genre, really.
Yeah. And the art for like horror is one of the things that when I actually started getting like really deep into it beyond just whatever my mom was buying. The art was like one of the things that pulled me in because I was definitely a Blockbuster kid. And it's like the weekly visit where you would just, the three of us, like you walk in the door and then you just like part ways and like run around the store and just like look at all the stuff. And like sometimes my mom would let us pick a movie or two. And it was like always based on the covers, never based on the synopsis or anything else. I think that's how we saw like there's like a horror like Rumpelstiltskin movie. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that.
Yes, I have actually seen that movie because of the cover.
Yeah, definitely a cover pick because if you like read the synopsis or knew what that movie was about, it's like no one really needs to see that movie. But
yeah, I'm trying to. I don't even remember what it was about. I remember that cover and being like, I gotta read this movie.
Yeah, it's. From what I haven't seen it in probably over 20 years or whatever, but yeah, it's from what I remember, it's not really worth. If you know the story of Rumpelstiltskin, you're set. You don't really need to see that.
I have to ask, my little brother is a huge sneakerhead. Like, I did not understand it until he started getting into it. And like, whenever I go home, he's like, let me show you my new shoes. And like, they are cool as fuck, I will say. Like, but so do you do the whole thing, like, you go, like, you buy the limited ones on drops? Do you sell shoes? Like, do you do that kind of stuff? Like the buying and selling and trading and all that crazy shit?
I did when I first moved to New York in 2010. Right after undergrad, I moved here for grad school. And it was a lot easier to get shoes then. I mean, obviously, like, if you had the money, it was a lot easier to get shoes then because you would do like midnight releases and you would just go to a store at maybe 9:30 or 10 in like Midtown Manhattan. You just like stand in line for a few hours. The doors would open. You would go in and like there used to be like a 2-pair limit for sneakers. And, like if you got there early enough, it was really easy to get shit. So you would go in, get the 2 pairs, and I had like me and my friend Mike would get the 2 pairs and then get on the line again and then get 2 more pairs. There's a store here called Flight Club that has basically any sneaker you could ever want. That's like any Nike, Reebok, whatever that's released over the last like 10, 15 years. But it's a consignment store. So you would go in and you could either sell directly to them, but the more common thing, you would go in and they would tell you like what the value, quote unquote value is. And it would be, I think, an 80-20 split. So, like, when they sell the shoe, then you get 80% of the commission, and they keep their 20.
Oh.
So, yeah, when I moved here, like, that's basically what the sneaker, like, quote-unquote, sneaker game, if you want to call it that, what it is now. It's, like, all kids online with bots. And they just, like, buy all the shoes as soon as they release. And then, like, yeah, similar to what's going on with PlayStation 5s and everything else now.
Yeah. Oh, I just learned about this all from my brother, who, like, he does the online stuff and, buys and resells. And, like, it's crazy. And he's always telling me how much things cost. And I was like, where the fuck are you getting all that money? I'm like, Tommy, you're 18. Like, what is happening?
Yeah, it's definitely a young man's game now. Like, I don't do it as often now because I don't really have to. But when I moved here, I made quite a bit of money doing that because it was
it's wild.
easier too. Yeah,
it's crazy. And I didn't even think about, like, in New York, it's probably so much easier because you can go to the stores and, like, it's way easier to go to drops.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and now it's crazy and all online.
Yeah, even when things release now, it's like when there is an in-store release, when you get there, the first maybe like 25 people in line are all like under 19 years old. There's always a bunch of kids.
Wow.
It's so bizarre. And like my brother posts on Instagram at his unboxings. He's going to hate that I say it's cute because he's like a teenager, like he's 18, like as an adult, but it's very fun to watch because I was like sneakers, but he loves it. So, you know.
Did he tell you about the recent debacle at Nike with sneaker reselling?
No, I don't think so.
I don't know. It really won't be old news by the time this episode comes out, but there's a woman at Nike recently left the company after 25 years because people found out that her son was like a huge reseller and like may or may not have been getting like insider information from her.
Oh.
And he has I think his account is still up on Instagram. But it's like the kind of reseller who like he's like posing in front of like 200 boxes of like a really limited sneaker that people can't get one of. And he was like renting a warehouse space and like using his mom's credit card to buy like $130,000 worth of sneakers. And
Jesus,
it was this whole. The funny thing is he did. Like, the only reason he got caught, or quote-unquote caught, because he's like, he blurs out his face on Instagram, but people figured out who he was because he did, like, this, like, tell-all interview with, I forget who the publication was, but basically he was, like, chasing the clout online and, like, did a full interview about, like, how many pairs he has and, like, how long he's been doing it and all this stuff. And someone, like, pulled the receipts and found out, like, his real name and who his mom was, and this whole thing.
That's wild.
Yeah. So he basically ruined his mom's 25-year career. But yeah.
Oh my God.
Oops. That's a different podcast.
Yikes. This is fascinating. Before we transition to the movie we're talking to, can you tell me your favorite pair that you've designed? Or is that difficult?
Sorry, I'm looking behind me to see what's visible. It's probably the Us Converse that I did. Not really. I mean, the design is cool. I obviously came out with it, so I like it. But I think the reason they're my favorite currently is because it's the pair that Matthew Cherry, who, I don't know, are you guys familiar with who that is? Yeah, Matthew Cherry, he is like an author and stuff. I don't know if he still does, but he worked with Monkey Paw for a while, and he saw them online on Twitter because I posted them and was like, I want to give these to Jordan Peele. And then Matthew Cherry saw them and DM'd me and was like, I could probably make this happen. And then he did, and I ended up making 2 pairs of Jordans for Jordan Peele that were Us themed,
like casual, whatever.
That's wild.
So
it was
cool.
Funny. He was actually supposed to wear one to the premiere. I think it was one of those festival, like music/movie festivals. I forget which one it was, but I was like rushing to finish them and like send it out to him because he was gonna maybe wear one for the premiere, and then that didn't actually end up happening. But yeah, it was really cool. Like I think one is in his personal collection now, and the other one is like on display at Monkey Paw or something. Which that's what I hear.
That's cool. Fucking amazing.
Yeah, I've had a lot of cool, like, in the past, like, 2 or 3 years, it's been insane, the amount of, like, Barbara Crampton follows me on Twitter now, just like, casual.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And it's like, I've had, like, I made shoes for Matt Donato of another podcaster.
Oh, the Chucky ones, right?
Yeah, I made Bride of Chucky shoes for him.
Bride of Chucky, yeah.
And Don Mancini saw them on Twitter and was like, I want these. I was like, all right, Don Mancini, the man who fucking invented Chucky. It's like, I'll make you whatever you want. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm definitely going to keep knocking on that door. It's like William Sadler saw one of my shirts online and wanted it because I made, sorry, this is a quick tangent related to the shit that I do. The way that I met Phil Nobile Jr. of Fangoria fame was like a whole Twitter back and forth between him and like the guys who ran the Fangoria account. They always had this like fake, like, quote unquote beef going on.
Yeah, I know exactly where you're going.
And back when Cats came out, there was like a joke going around that they were going to turn the logo into Fergoria for the magazine. And there was a signing in New York City at this store, Fantastic Planet, and I showed up at the signing to like get my issue signed by Phil, and I think it was like Tim Pone and someone else. There was like a couple other people there, but I showed up in a shirt with the Fergoria. No, I lied. Sorry, I'm mixing up 2 different stories. I think the first time was the Fango McFango face when they were trying to think of a name to like change it was this whole thing. But I showed up in a Fango McFango face shirt I got Phil to sign it, and then the next signing, I showed up in the Fergoria shirt, and I think I gave Phil a couple, and then yeah, it was this whole thing. But I forget where I was going with that story. What was I talking about? Sorry, I'm having a beer, so maybe my mind is wandering.
Oh, we were just talking about your favorite designs. That's all. We were just talking about that.
I've had a lot of really cool things happen, just like in the past couple of years.
Horror
just,
community is
like,
amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And we all love our custom shit that we can't find anywhere else. So it's the best. I have your Nia DaCosta's Candyman shirt.
Oh, yeah, it was another thing.
I love
yeah,
it.
It's so many fucking... Oh, I love it here. It's really cool.
We love having you here.
We've done so many cool things. Like, it's amazing. And one day I'm going to buy shoes from you. I already have an idea. So I'm so excited.
I'm here anytime. That's the other weird thing. That's why I'm glad that I get to do shirts and some other stuff. Because I understand that not everyone, like, wants custom shoes or, like, can afford custom shoes. So it's really cool to be able to just, like, make a cool $20 shirt supporting a movie that I really fucking wish I could see already. But
oh, I know. The fact that we haven't seen that yet is just, it's killing me.
It's so fucking...
I want to see it. I want to see it so bad. Like, that is the movie this year that I want to see above anything else, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of really great movies, hopefully, that are coming out this year. But, like, that one is, like, right there at the top. I was so excited last year.
The fact that she knows my name now is also insane to me.
That's crazy.
It's really... Yeah,
that is crazy.
Actually, I got to shout out my friends, Wendy and Kevin, who they run, like, a weekly online trivia game for this movie theater in Brooklyn called Nighthawk. And Nia DaCosta, like, and her friends were just randomly, like, fans of the trivia, and they would play every week. Like, I didn't know who she was at the time. She like came on and did like a guest round of trivia.
Oh my gosh!
And at one point, my friends just like shouted me out during trivia. I was like, "Yeah, Andrew made like the Nia DaCosta's Candyman shirt." And she was like, "What?" in the chat, and she like hit me up on Instagram after, and like I told her I just like sent her that shirt, and I sent her one of the like the black horror director shirts that also has her name on it.
Ow,
that's so cool! Fuck yeah, like whatever, casual, just sending. I love it.
I have peaked. There's nowhere else to go from here.
I mean, it's quite a nice peak, though. I mean, you know,
yeah, it's not a bad one.
Retire happy.
There you go.
So, transitioning into the movie you brought with you today, Andrew, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about titties for Terry. No, I'm kidding.
Titties for Terry.
Titties for Terry.
Bring that hashtag back, please.
Oh my god.
We are actually talking about the best horror anthology of all time, Tales from the Dark Side, the movie.
I love that you just said that.
So, for those unfamiliar, a young boy tells 3 horror stories about mummies, cats from hell, and gargoyles to distract a witch who plans to eat him. So, Andrew, tell us your horror story about this movie. Like, how old were you when you saw it? What effect did it have on you? Just, like, tell us that story.
Yeah, again, I don't remember the exact age, but it was pretty young. I was pretty young when I first saw it. Because something else I didn't mention earlier, the way I saw most movies as a kid was my grandmother worked at like a bookstore / like rental place, and she could get movies for free basically. But then we would bring them home and like record them on like a VHS. So we had these. She had like a full bookcase of VHSs that had like 3 movies each on each VHS. It would be like renting movies from her house basically, or just like watching them over them. So it's like a lot of movies that I saw when I was really young that's how we saw them. Tales from the Dark Side was just always in the mix somehow. And I don't know if my mom ever watched the show, but it was like basically the same, or not really the same, but it was in the same vein as Tales from the Crypt. So it was like the kind of stuff that we really like to watch. So like the thing that stood out to me from Tales from the Dark Side to this day was the third segment, which I'm sure we will get into. So it's like not really. I was never really quote unquote scared. I know a lot of people mistake this podcast as the Scared for Life podcast. It definitely scarred me.
Yeah.
And it's probably why I'm not in a relationship today, because I don't trust women. I'm kidding.
All women are gargoyles. You have exposed us for what we really are.
You better watch out, Andrew. They're going to start descending on your apartment now.
I was gonna say, this is either gonna be like the most controversial episode. I'm just gonna say really wild shit to get canceled from being on this podcast. But yeah, no, nothing from it really scared me. But there were certain things in the movie that just like stuck with me since like the first time I saw it. One was obviously the entire third segment, but also the fucking cat crawling out of the guy's mouth.
Oh my god!
And, there's just like so many visuals in this that I don't know. Maybe kids should not see, but fuck that. I think kids should see whatever they want to see. So
hell yeah, I agree.
Oh my god,
Okay.
it is the best. Okay.
Women are gargoyles. Discuss.
That's it. Women are gargoyles. That's the end of the episode. That's all we wanted to talk about. Like, it's over. Everybody, our secret is exposed. We have to go. Anyway.
So I think because this movie is like, well, it's an anthology. I have a lot of questions I want to ask about this gargoyle thing, but let's start from the very beginning with this wraparound. Because I'll say I saw this movie as a kid as well, and I remember the poster in particular because it was like the right amount of like gremlins, but it also seemed a little bit more sinister. Like it's an image of kind of the gargoyle from the movie, although it kind of has cat's eyes a little bit, and it's holding a book and it's reading from it, and it's like. It's delightfully macabre, but it also seems playful enough that it could be for a kid, even though it's rated R and incredibly gory. It's one of those movies that seems like it could be a kid's movie in a way.
Yeah. And it had one of the Lawrence brothers in it. So it's like...
Oh my God. I forgot about that until he showed up in the very beginning. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Matthew Lawrence.
For some reason, I think... Growing up, I always thought it was Andrew Lawrence, maybe just because he had my name. But yeah, it was the middle Lawrence brother.
So young. Such a kid.
Were you familiar with the Lawrences, Mary Beth?
No.
Have you ever seen Blossom?
No.
Yeah, the older brother, Joey, I guess he was the most famous one at the time.
Yeah. Whoa.
Are they all in horror? Are they all in horror? Am I just like a dumb?
No. Just this one was. Well, actually, I don't know if the other ones ever did horror movies, but they were just like famous for being like TV stars, I guess.
Yeah, Joey Lawrence was in. He was in the TV show Blossom. With the one actress that would end up on Big Bang Theory, Mayim Bialik.
Bialik. Mm-hmm.
She had like a television show getting silence from Mary Beth.
Mary Beth is like, I have no idea what you're talking about right now.
No, I don't. I have no recollection
of this.
Oh, okay. I know who one of them is. The young one.
Andrew?
I think so.
It's so
I don't know,
weird.
because I'm sorry. I was born. I'm a little young. I don't know.
No, it's fine. I was going to say, I think I'm directly in the middle. I was born in 88, so I'm right between you two.
Yeah. Yeah, that and I was wondering about that, because I think that if you weren't conscious from a certain, like, because when were you born, Mary Beth? You were
1993.
Yeah, because like I know. I mean, Blossom would have ended when you were like 2. So the chance of you ever seeing that.
Matthew was in Mrs. Doubtfire. Oh, he was Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
He was also in The Hot Chick.
Oh, I haven't seen that movie in a hot minute.
And he was born like I think a year before me, so like I've always had a huge crush on him.
More him than Joey?
Like yes, actually. Huh. Yeah, and I remember in particular when I was still closeted, like going to see The Hot Chick and just being so in love with him.
What are you talking about, Terry? You're a straight white man.
Oh my God. That episode just posted, and let me tell you, editing that was like, oh fuck, I forgot that I said that.
I was listening to it today. I was like, wait, what? Because you didn't catch yourself at first? I was
no,
like, wait,
I didn't.
Did I like misunderstand something about Terry all this time?
Yes, the owner
Gaily
of...
Dreadful was all of the fucking ruse. His entire the entire internet presence that Terry has generated for himself is the complete bullshit. Titties for Terry. I'm working t-shirts.
Oh God. Oh, no. Do not tell the artist about that.
I actually, funny enough, I was going to make a Titties for Terry shirt just like before this recording. It would have been stupid because you guys can't see it. But
Oh my
I
God.
would've
Just
known.
like post it in the middle of the podcast. Okay, back to Tales from the Dark Side.
Oh yeah, that's why we're here. Sorry about
That's
that.
over here. Yeah, so Terry, you love this movie.
I love this movie, and I'll tell you what. This opening, the wraparound story, watching it as an adult and seeing Debbie,
Harry,
yes,
Deborah, as she's credited.
Deborah Harry.
Deborah Harry as this incredibly coiffed like witch, because she just walks out when she's first introduced, and it's like this kind of small town USA. It feels like it could be next door to like where the Gremlins is shot. And you have like her walking out with these groceries, and she is just looking stylish as hell, only to find out that she is the literal like Hansel and Gretel witch, where she's keeping a kid in the pantry that is actually a cell. I'm like, this is so fucking wild.
So cool. I didn't know, obviously I didn't know who she, sorry, my breath. I didn't know who she was when I saw this as a kid.
No, me neither.
Watching it this time, I realized like I didn't know who any of these fucking people were except the Lawrence brother. And there's like so many like big names in this movie.
There are so many big names in this movie. It's crazy. So I was watching this today on my laptop, and my boyfriend walked by and was like, "Is that a dungeon cell in her kitchen?" And I was like, "Why, yes it is." And he's like, "Okay." He's like, "What are you watching?" And then I had to explain, like, "Okay, it's this and this and this." But yeah, I always realize that these movies are very interesting to just like see snippets of over my shoulder in like the middle of the afternoon. Like, whatever, it's fine.
Well, in her casual comments, though, about like, 12 minutes a pound, you have to be in the oven no later than 1:30, and then talking about eviscerating him, I'm like, this is vicious.
I love I love really scary witches, but I also love this like aesthetic suburban witch who like is very like cute, and then it's like, oh, by the way, I eat children and like it's for a dinner party.
Yes.
Like, I'm just preparing a child for dinner. Like, do they know it's a child? I had so
that's
many
the question I had. She was on the phone with someone, like I think it's like a dinner party for 6 or something she was talking about. But like it's not clear if the other people know that like they're going to be eating a child. It was just like a coven that's coming over. It's really weird.
Is this a Hannibal situation where you're secretly feeding them human flesh? Or like are y'all exactly a coven that are like all coming to hang out and eat kids on really nice china?
Yeah, because I think she's married. So like the husband obviously has to know that there's a dungeon in their kitchen.
Right? That was my question, because she mentions a husband on the phone, and I'm like, okay, either A, this is a husband that never goes into the kitchen, or like, how does he not know? I had a lot of questions about that.
Yeah. So had you seen this before, Mary Beth?
I hadn't. No, I had not, actually. I was super excited to watch it because I love Creepshow. We'll probably talk about that. We'll talk about the comparison in a little bit. But I watched Creepshow when I was younger, and it scared me, but I loved it. I loved the practical effects, and I had never actually heard of this movie until like a couple of years ago. So I was talking to Terry about this before you jumped on. Like, this movie is not talked about enough.
It is not.
I know, no, and it's tragic because this movie's fucking rules. Like, this movie fucking rules. And I was thinking about Creepshow the whole time and like unfortunately comparing them, but I was so excited to watch this because I love horror anthologies, especially from this from this time period with like the special effects. Like it is chef's kiss. Like the effects and gore in this movie are just so fucking good.
Done by K&B, the legendary K&B effects.
Just oh my god. And so I guess we'll like start talking about going through the segments. But okay, so Lot 249, Mummy. I love mummies, and I know Terry loves mummies too.
I do. Did this segment do anything to you as a kid, Andrew?
It didn't. I first of all, I did not remember that fucking Christian Slater and Steve Buscemi were in it.
And Julian fucking Moore?
Julian Moore?
I guess I didn't know who any of those people were as a kid, because I just thought there were some pretty good actors, in a mummy. But,
when
I love The part that I remember most was like him like cutting the mummy up at the end. The rest of it, and like stuffing the flowers in Julianne Moore's back or in her ribs. I think those were the two things that stood out more to me as a kid from the segment.
Yeah. When Steve Buscemi popped up on screen, I texted Terry and I was like, Steve Buscemi can get it. I love him. He's so cute. Like, I love him forever.
Funny enough, I was watching there's like a special feature on the Scream Factory disc with there's like interviews with all the people who made the film, and I think the one was the set director. I could be wrong, but she was talking about working on Lot 249, and she was saying that like all the women were in love with Steve Buscemi because they were all like New York, like Lower East Side types, like back when you can afford to live in like Lower Manhattan, and like Steve Buscemi was like the idol of like indie, like low budget films. Like obviously Christian Slater was there too, but she was like they cared more about Steve Buscemi than Slater.
That's
but
awesome.
He's got that like nerdy hot boy vibe. Like Christian Slater is like hot jock boy vibe.
Yeah.
Steve Buscemi is like nerdy kind of hipster boy, and it makes sense that like indie people who are in indie movies are like, hello,
Yeah.
I like you and your glasses.
I think they said Slater was coming off of Heathers at the time, so he was.
Oh
like
wow.
He was maybe the quote unquote the bigger star than Buscemi, but yeah.
This was the second movie that I had seen Christian Slater in, and he was another guy I had a huge secret crush on. And it was because I remember sneaking a movie that the first movie I saw him in was this. I don't know how good it is now, but as a kid, I was bored to tears with it. It was The Name of the Rose, and it's like it's like based on a novel, and it's this like medieval historical thing, and he plays like a monk. But there's a scene where he is like, you get full on ass shot of him as he's like having sex with some woman. And as a kid, I was like, oh, I like Christian Slater. And then I see him in this movie like maybe a couple years later, and I'm like, oh, it's that dude.
It's the sexy monk.
It's the sexy monk, exactly. But so the thing that this did to me as a kid was made me like get educated. I never really thought, I love mummies, as Mary Beth had mentioned before, but I never really knew, I guess never really considered the fact that there was like a body underneath those like wraps. When I would watch like the old Universal Studios one, I never really realized that of course they had to embalm them, so they pulled the brains. I was reading something that they actually like liquefy the brains and it drains out of the nose is what actually possibly happened. But like seeing that as a kid and being like, oh, I never really realized that.
This might have been the first, like obviously now I've been to museums and shit, and like you hear about the hook that they use for the nose, but this might have been the first time that I learned that too.
Yeah, this was definitely the first time for me, and the fact that they take out the organs in the chest and stuff herbs and flowers and stuff, like it makes sense that they would do that, but like I never really thought about that until this movie, and I was like, oh wow, so this movie educational.
I love mummies, and like I was that kind of kid that like loved Egyptian gods and like was all about like the jars of organs and shit. And The Mummy, the Brendan Fraser movie, The Mummy, was the first one where I learned about that, and I was like, whoa, that's so cool. Like, you know, any normal child. But I thought too often about having your brain pulled out through your nose and what that would look like, and I would always imagine they would literally just like pull your whole brain out of your nose and it would just pop out like out of a movie, and they would like deflate and then reinflate, and it was just like your whole brain. Like it wasn't chunks of brain, it was just like your whole fucking brain would come out of your nose, which obviously is not true, but it was always the funniest picture in my head. Like you just pop out, there it is, your whole brain.
That is even more disturbing, I think. Just yanking full brains out of your nose.
So the gore in this one though is the effects in general in this anthology segment. Yeah, thank you. Are actually really good. I think I love Lee's death where he gets lifted up and then you see like the hook going up his nose and it's just like a rain pour of blood that's like pouring down on his feet, and then Susan coming home and of course finding the brains in the fruit bowl is just like, that is an image that has like stayed with me ever since I first saw this movie.
Yeah,
it's so good. Well, and we've talked about this, Terry, it's a slasher, it's a mummy slasher. Why are there not more mummy slashers?
It is a very good question.
Like, I would watch a full-length movie of a mummy going around with the hook, wringing people's organs out of their bodies. Like, I would watch it where they have there's like the corresponding jars for your organs, and I want to see the movie where the mummy goes around filling the jars with organs, and he can put himself back together with people's organs. I wrote it, guys. All right, cool.
God.
Who wants to get in on the ground floor? You're
just giving these ideas away for free.
I don't know how to make a fucking movie. Someone can have it.
What would his name be? You got to name the mummy.
Oh no! You put me on the spot. No, I'm not gonna.
Threw a wrench in that plan.
As a side note, okay, again with the mummy, you know the woman he's in love with, like the Anak Sailor. I call her Anak Sailor Moon. Like, I thought her name was Sailor Moon as a kid, and I was like, oh my god, Sailor Moon! It's not that at all. So obviously, I'm not great with ancient Egyptian names, so I'm probably the best person to ask about that. But I'll think about it.
Some listener will look it up and let you know.
Wow. Okay, guys. If someone makes that movie, can you just like give me credit? I just want a little credit. Yes, please.
What I love about this one is that it kind of pits this sort of elitist, rich, entitled class set against Bellingham, who is obviously he's not from that world, and everyone like looks down on him. But I love that he gets the last laugh, and it's because he says that Andy couldn't distinguish a third dynasty sacred scroll from a piece of post Alexandrian pictogram porn. That line, and then the fact that like he gets his revenge on all three of them. I love that it's this not untitled, this guy that I'm assuming he's coming from more of the either like he's at a lower class supposedly than the rich people, but he gets the last laugh in the end.
Yeah, he's probably like the kid on the academic scholarship.
Yeah,
the only way he could afford to go to that school. And
yeah, he was leaving. Was he leaving because they said he stole something, or was he leaving because he didn't get the scholarship?
He was originally leaving because of the Zuni fetish that was planted in his office when he yes academic sabotage. You love to see it. The nerdiest sabotage.
I love that it was a Zuni fetish doll. Definitely, I didn't clock that when I was a kid, obviously, because I had no idea what the fuck that was.
They kept saying fetish doll, and I'm like, this is like, and so straight face, like, yeah, Zuni fetish doll. I'm like, oh yeah, all right.
Well, I love that he's so upset with that because I'm trying to think of what he exactly said, but he's like, I loathe the Zuni aesthetics is what he says. And it's like they have these like high-minded conversations that as a kid I'm just like, oh, I loathe Zuni aesthetics too. I don't even know what the fuck that means. Like, what does that even mean?
Like, what? So, okay, moving from the mummy, then there's the linked to mummies, there's that cat. There's the cat scene, or the cat segment, which is my personal favorite.
Oh, yeah?
Because it's ridiculous. Like, an old man hires a hitman to kill a cat, which is amazing. And I love when cats are villains, because it's just like, because I have two cats who are the dumbest, like, dumber than a sack of bricks. And I love them so much.
Careful.
Yeah, well, now I'm going to say that and they're going to fucking kill me. One of them's staring at me right now. Like,
climb down your throat.
I'm going to climb down your throat while you're sleeping, bitch. But just like I love it when people are like, cats are so like demure and scary. I'm like, have you met a cat though? Because cats are kind of stupid, like in the best way I mean that. But like this cat, like I just love it. Black cats are like, oh, they're evil, and I'm like, that cat probably just wants to sit in your lap, like, or inside of you, like literally wants to get so close to you and wants to get inside of you.
Yeah, I think this movie probably made me like semi afraid of cats. I love certain cats, but I think like as a whole, cats are pretty evil. Like the part in the story where the guy's talking about the cat like stealing the breath like while you're sleeping. That is true. I've had that. I've like cat sat for a friend and like woke up to the cat like pawing at my lips and just had to like lock it out of the room because like I don't trust you at all.
I mean, I can't refute that because my cat I had to leave my cat out of my room too because she would sit 25-pound cat on my chest and be like her face like as close as she could get to mine and just purring. So I can't necessarily refute that, but like at the same time, the way the cat in this particular movie steals the breath by like literally
just
covering
putting its paw.
that and then literally like throwing itself on her face and like digging its claws into her back and just sort of like smothering her with her body. I was
It's
like,
so funny now, but I'm sure I was like horrified when I saw that as a kid. Like,
So I have to share what my cats are doing right now. So, so I have 2 cats. One is 12. One is a kitten, and she gets locked out because she's a pain in the ass during recording, and he's in here because he just sleeps. But right now, she is putting her paws underneath the door, and he's playing with her paws. So like they're hitting each other's paws behind, like through the door, and it's the cutest shit I've ever seen, and also hysterical as we're talking about cats like stealing breath, and meanwhile my cats are just like playing footsies through the door.
Adorable.
Beautiful, stupid creatures.
I forgot about the cat POV in this movie too.
Yeah.
Killer cat POV. More of it. I want more killer cat POV because it's like, again, that slasher, like seeing with the eyes of the slasher, and it's the cat's point of view. Oh, it's so good.
There's so many in this whole film. There's so many cool shots that I did not pay attention to when I was younger. Mm-hmm. But like watching and it was like this director's like first film, which is also insane. But watching like the special features when they talk about how they wanted to make all of the segments like distinct and like very different from each other. So like in this segment, they had like all the blue filters for like the past, like the flashbacks and the cat POV and all this other really cool stuff.
I love
really awesome.
The transition, speaking of which, to the flashback. In particular, there's one where where the old man is having a conversation with the hitman, and the hitman is like on the right side of the screen. He like his face comes in facing, and then the man comes in facing, and in the background, all of a sudden, like the flashback is playing, and the transition there is so good. But it makes sense that you say that they wanted each segment to be different, because one of the things that I did notice is that each segment has its own composer. And the music is so very different from each segment that it definitely gives each one its own like vibe.
Yeah, it's really cool. Also, just a quick note on the different segments. I also found out that the order that they appear in the film was not the original order of the segments.
Oh, really?
Which blows. Like I forget, Lover's Vow, the gargoyle one, was supposed to be first, and they were going to end with the mummy, which would have like changed fucking everything, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Apparently, audiences were not a fan of the way it was.
Yeah, because I feel like the mummy is the perfect intro. Like that's the perfect like intro segment, and wow, that would have changed the whole vibe of the movie.
Yeah. Also, just I don't know if it kind of fucked it up a little bit for me, but hopefully it won't ruin it for people listening. But there's also, you can tell that it's different because in the wraparound, at one point, because obviously if the segments are different, that means the kid is like telling the stories in a different order. And in the wraparounds, you can notice, because when Debbie Harry first walks into the kitchen, she like puts the flowers down on the table, but then like the next time you see behind her is like a table full of like vegetables and shit. And then like later, one of the transitions out of, I forget which segment it is, but the transition out is like her cutting the flowers again, and like the vegetables are gone. So it's like the way they like the editor had to move things around was a little weird. It's like, now that you like know it, you can't unsee it, but I still think the way it plays now is perfect. The order they chose is perfect.
I never noticed that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna forget that, so I never think about it.
So did the finale? Because the finale is what stuck out to me, and it's honestly, Andrew, the scene that I remember to this day of the cat going down his throat and then coming back up his mouth. Did that affect you at all as a kid?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't afraid of it, but yeah, I thought it was fucking awesome, and I still think it's fucking awesome.
It's so awesome. It's chest
like,
bursters and xenomorphs it is, oh my god.
Yeah, that's another awesome thing. Like, if you have the Scream Factory DVD to watch the behind the scenes stuff, like you can see how they filmed that part, because apparently they had legendary effects guy Dick Smith was like a consultant on the movie. And it's like one part, like K&B did all the effects, but there's one part where like the cat is halfway into his mouth and he's just like shaking, and it's kind of funny but also scary. And the way they did it is like the back part, the tail is like an animatronic, then it's like the cat is a prop, and then like on the, it's weird to say cat stump, but like there's a mouth, there's a mouthpiece just like on the cat, the part that between like the cat body and the guy's mouth. There's like a mouthpiece where he had to hold on to it. And then he had like the facial prosthetics to make it look like the cat was actually going into his mouth. He was like shaking that around and stuff. But yeah, the part where the cat actually comes back out of his mouth, the first part where you see the head push through is a prop, but then the rest is an actual fucking cat. They're like forced to crawl out of like a small tube to like stuff the cat in, and like poked it from behind so they had no other way to go but like out of the mouth.
I was wondering about that because I was like, that looks like a real cat. So how the fuck did they get a cat to do that? And now I know.
Probably not the most like humane thing to do, but it looks amazing in the movie.
It does.
It's so fucking disturbing.
No cats were technically harmed in the making of this movie.
Not physically harmed, just emotionally scarred. But yeah, that visual of the cat crawling out of the mouth is fucking terrifying.
It really is, and that in particular held up. I don't necessarily think the cat going in. Like I was laughing hysterically at the image of this poor hitman with this cat's ass and tail just coming out of his mouth, waggling, and he's like forced to like shake his head around to it, and the tail is just going wild. I agree, but there's one like close-up shot of it when he like tries to pull it out and then it like goes back in. That's still a little unsettling, but yeah, as a whole, going in is just like, it's pretty funny.
Just the image of like a cat just like going in and like turning around, doing a U-turn in his stomach, then just coming back out, like amazing. It's
so unexpected too. Like I don't know how I thought that like that segment was going to end the first time I saw it, but
definitely
at no
not
point
that.
Do you think it's like, oh, it's an evil cat. Obviously, it's going to go down his fucking throat at some point in the movie.
I know. I thought it was going to like scratch him to death, or he's going to get some weird infection from the cat.
Exactly.
Like, I was like, you get some weird thing. Nope, the cat just goes right down his throat. It's amazing. It's so good. Like, no, you wouldn't expect that, but he just fits right down the esophagus and just.
It is awesome.
Well, and talking about like cats in general, I love that the last thing it does is he just sort of leaps into the old man's lap and just starts taking a bath as the old man is having a heart attack. Like, if that is a cat thing right there.
Yeah, that's the most cat bullshit I've ever seen.
The old man, played by William Hickey, is also the voice of Dr. Finkelstein in The Nightmare Before Christmas, which is
right. And he looks like this segment. He looks like, I'm like, that makes sense. It tracks. He kind of looks like Dr. Finkelstein. Sorry, William Hickey, but
also
like
ironically, he was also in The Name of the Rose, that really boring medieval Christian Slater ass movie. He was
Terry's
also in
favorite
that
movie.
Yeah, yes.
So transitioning to the last segment,
Lover's
which is
Vow. Oh, man.
Lover's Vow, which Andrew, you said scarred you the most. Mm-hmm. Wow.
It's like now, seeing it now, it's like what happens in it. I don't know why I'm avoiding it. Like we're not talking spoilers, but seeing like knowing what happens in it now, it's kind of like foreshadowed throughout the segment. Like as a kid, the first time when you discover that she's the gargoyle, I don't know why that was such a massive shock to me and just like fucked my shit up watching that segment. It's just like, and it's like Rae Dawn, which is one of the most beautiful women in the world.
Oh my god, she's
her transform into a
gorgeous.
fucking gargoyle.
Oh my god. The worst part is when like her skin is stretched over the face and like his like the head bops out, and I was like, oh no, this is some Hellraiser shit with just like the flesh like over the head shape. And I knew that she was the gargoyle probably, but it still was very shocking.
Yeah, it's like throughout the whole thing, he's doing such a good job of like, first of all, why are you drawing pictures of it like throughout like for 10 years? Just like chill. She told you don't mention it, just don't mention it. You don't have to be that kind of an artist and just like you have to get it out of your mind. But he did such a good job
to exercise my demons through art.
It's like for 10 years he did a great job of actually hiding the images from her, and then like when he finally tells her, you're like, oh, you fucking idiot. She's like, you promise you never tell. And he was like, oh no.
That line. Watching this as an adult, like I was with you, Andrew, when I first saw this as a kid. That blew my mind. I was like, what? And then the two little kids coming out as gargoyles. How tragic. It's so sad.
Oh,
but,
I know.
As an adult, I'm like, okay, but why did the gargoyle do this to begin with? Why did he have to? Why did he kill his friend? And then
the long con, he just wanted love.
Right. Well, I mean, that was the one thing that I did pick up as an adult, is that, it's the gargoyle statue's been staring down at him, perched up on the ceiling through the skylight. So like, I can kind of get maybe that interest there, but I'm like, but why did you have to kill his friend? Like, why are you showing yourself this way? As you're like ripping his.
That's another awesome shot, though. I mean, slaps the friend's head off.
Yes, loved it.
But like, I got Major American Werewolf in London vibes, and like he tears off the side of his face, and he's like, "Help me!" and his eye is just kind of hanging out there, and it's just torn to shreds, and then the head just fucking flies off.
What would you guys do in that situation? Would you, like, if you saw your friend murdered by a gargoyle, and then it like fucking talks to you in the alley?
One, I'd be glad that I just peed, because otherwise I'd probably piss myself.
Yeah.
Two, yeah, I would. I probably wouldn't last very long. I would not last 10 years, but I would be swearing, I promise I would never. And then I'd be like, oh my God, you guys, this fucking gargoyle just
5 minutes later.
I'd be like running into Ray Don Chong and being like, hey, I just saw this fucking gargoyle like murder someone. And they would have been over there.
Listen, lady, get out of this alley. There's a fucking gargoyle decapitating people out here.
But wait, what did he say? He got into like a fight with a whiskey bottle or something? When she's like, "What's that?"
Yeah, bottle of
scotch. But I was like, "What?" I would not have. I would have like, I don't know. But if I saw that in an alley, I probably would just freeze. I probably wouldn't know what to do. I would probably just like sit there, and then it would talk to me, and I just nod my head, and then maybe pass out. I don't think I'd know.
Like,
Yeah,
man,
that'd be a lot to process.
I had one too many beers that night.
Like, what was in my beer that I'm now seeing a giant gargoyle whose design is amazing, by the way.
It's
Like,
really good.
I love these movies because they just did a full-on, like, giant gargoyle.
Yeah,
like, practical
so
effects. It's so good.
I think I tweeted recently, the director in the special features, he has like 2 statues of it in his like home.
Yeah,
and
I saw that.
I really want someone to like remake those and sell it, because I would buy one right now.
Hell yeah. Can we talk about the daughter, though? The
Oh
scene
my God.
where they show up at the house and it's their 10th anniversary, and the daughter says, "You mean when you thought he was going to push you up against the wall and rape you?" Yeah. Like, this is the conversation you're having with your little daughter?
Yeah, and she just looks at the child and just like what? Yeah, that's a weird mother-daughter relationship. Like, hey kids, I met your dad in the alley once, and I thought he was going to rape me, but now we're happily married, and you guys are here. So
that was a what the fuck moment for me, to be honest.
I did rewind, whatever. I was like, hold on, what the fuck? Did your daughter just be very frank about how y'all met? Because that is hello. Let's tell the story of how we met to our children when they're very young, and like. Imagine you like her saying it to a teacher at school.
Yes.
Kids are the stupidest shit. So like, oh, by the way, like my mom and dad met because my mom thought my dad was going to rape her in an alleyway. It's like, oh, are you safe?
Speaking
like,
of which, was it Corolla? I forget what the character's name is.
Carola?
Carola. That's what it was. why would she go with him in the first? I mean, obviously she's a gargoyle, so we know why. But like, if she wasn't, why would you just go with this random drunk guy who's like, "Oh yeah, come back to my apartment, and you can call a taxi from there"? It's like, what? No, thank you. I'll take my chances on the street.
I just like came over and then we had sex. And by the way, can I live here?
That escalation was very quick.
I know.
I
was like,
it is a pretty nice like artist loft. I would want to get in on that too. But
I mean,
it's
fair.
true. Hey, can I crash here for a bit? You got enough space.
It's better than the rooftop she was living on. So
That's true. I always love in these movies where the artist is completely broke and has the biggest fucking studio like I've ever seen. I'm like,
In New
what are you
York?
like? You're broke? Really? How can you
I
afford
think
it?
rent was like $35 back then, though. So
True.
it's like Basquiat and those guys. I'm sure they like when they had no money, they probably all had insane lofts like that too. There's probably like 8 people living in it, but so
That's true. Maybe that's the thing, though. You usually have like a ton of people living in it, and you make your own loft beds and like build your own like cubbies. But anyway.
yeah. And the art he was making at the time, he was not selling like any. I don't know why he had an agent because he wasn't selling shit anyway.
No.
10% of nothing is nothing. That line, it's like, oh, that's cruel. And then, of course, that 10 years later, when her daughter says that about when they first meet, she also says, "Yes, darling, it's also the night that Wyatt here gave him the shaft." Like their conversation, like what I want to know, what kind of conversations have you had with your kids over the last like 10 years? It's,
I mean, she's a gargoyle. She doesn't know like etiquette between like parents and kids.
That's a very good point. She was a very convincing
point.
human, I will say. And it
she's
is
so
like
gorgeous.
It's so sad at the end when they're like, "I loved you, but you broke your vow," and it's just so sad. But okay, I will say she tears out his throat, but it would have been even more fucked up if she let him live. I will say that.
You just like left with the kids.
Just left with the kids and was like, "You have to live with this for the rest of your life." Like, and no one's gonna fucking believe you that your wife and children turned into gargoyles.
and are now perched outside of your skyline.
By the way.
At least the agent was really smart in that scene when he like heard the scream and just like got in a taxi and fucked off. He was like, "Yeah, I don't want to know what that is."
If that's not the most city living shit I've ever seen, just like, I don't want to know. I don't care. I'm getting in my cab and fucking leaving. Like, I don't like. I want nothing to do with this. Because I thought he was gonna get got. Like, they do a really good job setting it up that like he's the next victim.
Yeah. I definitely thought he was gonna go back to the apartment. But
I thought she was gonna pop out and just kill him in the street. Like, I had no idea. I thought like he was gonna like it's gonna be a parallel from the beginning in an alleyway. But nope, he just gets into his cab and is like, "Nope, I'm getting the fuck out of here. I do not care."
But then we get to the wraparound finally, and what I mean, I think of the stories, the wraparound is fine. It does its job of connecting the stories together in a way. But I will say that what I did love about it watching this time is the kind of meta narrative at the end where the kid starts like narrating his own daring escape and then ends up sending her in the oven and then looks at the camera and breaks the fourth wall directly and says, "Don't you love happy endings?" Because this was in like 1990 and everyone credits like, Scream with being, and to a lesser degree, like a New Nightmare as being like a meta narrative. But the way that this ended, I was like, oh, that's actually kind of fun and smart and winky in a way that I don't think it gets credit for.
I agree.
Very good point, Terry.
All right, bye. Bye, guys.
Let me just pat myself on my back.
Were the cookies the kid? Were like Chips a lot or something?
Yes.
Off-brand cookies?
Chips a lot.
These are not Chips Ahoy. So, okay. So this anthology versus, of course, it does live in the shadow of Creepshow.
Which I had not seen until, I guess, maybe a few years ago. So
really? So you don't have that nostalgia?
Not at all. It's weird. With movies like Creepshow and like some other, I guess, like quote-unquote classic horror movies, I feel like I've seen them just because they're like in the ether of everything. Like you know like that the Raff is in like Creepshow 2 and like all these random facts about things. So it feels like you've seen them even if you haven't. Just like for my entire life, I thought I saw Creepshow and I definitely had not. So I didn't have that as a comparison when I watched Tales from the Dark Side.
Did you grow up watching Creepshow, Mary Beth? Or had you seen him?
I had seen it. Like, it was like, so I've talked about how I hadn't seen a ton of classics as a kid, but this was the one that like my dad really wanted to show me. He was like, "This is the quintessential horror movie that you need to see." Like, almost marketing it as a kid's movie. Like, it felt like it wasn't a kid's, it's similar to this. Like, it almost kind of felt like a kid's movie, but it was a little bit fucked up. Well, a lot of it fucked up, I guess. But I always remember the first segment with the birthday and like the guy coming out of the grave. That was my favorite one. And then the roach one terrified me. And so ever since that, I have been terrified of roaches. So living in a city that has a roach problem is a fucking nightmare for me. But I grew up with Creepshow. And I had seen it a couple times, and we always joked about like meteor shit. Like that was a joke in my family about Stephen King. That's what I found out what Stephen King looked like, and it did not match what I thought he looked like. Did not match. Yeah. What about you, Terry? You grew up with Creepshow, right?
I did. I remember the first one a lot more. The second one I know I had seen before because when I revisited it a few years ago, I was like, oh yeah, okay, I remember all these anthology segments, but that's not the one that I would remember a lot. And I'll be honest, I think that as a whole, I do think that Tales from the Dark Side is a stronger set of anthology segments to some of
correct
to Creepshow.
The correct answer.
I think Creepshow have like one, maybe two in each one that are like really, really good. But I think as a whole, I don't think they hold up. And I know that that's like blasphemy on the internet because Creepshow, everyone loves Creepshow, but they just never really did it for me. But this one, Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, is my favorite. It's still to this day. This rewatch like reaffirmed it for me.
Nice. Yeah, growing up, it was always, anthology-wise, it was Tales from the Dark Side and Tales from the Hood for me, which is another one we watched religiously as kids. I don't know why that one was, I mean, besides the fact that it's like the quote, it's like the black anthology, whatever that means, but I think it was just, for some reason, it was just like more popular for me growing up than Creepshow and all those other ones.
Well, and I mean, you said you were born in '88, so that also makes sense because that came out in '95, so that was probably like that kind of heyday of watching horror movies for you. I would think as a kid, where it's like for me, I would have been 9 when Tales from the Dark Side came out, and so I think it might be just that certain age group that you fall into.
Yeah. There's more anthologies that I realized. I feel like there's like a top like 5 maybe that everyone references, but there's like a shit ton of anthologies out there, and I haven't seen half of them.
Yeah, and I was just looking at the list of the Creepshow segments, and I forgot about a couple of them, and I also forgot there were so many. Like I liked in this one how there was only 3 and they were longer. It kind of set up a more, especially with the last one, like an emotional connection to the story. It didn't feel rushed. Like they were more kind of fleshed out stories that were more than just like shocking moments. And again, I love Creepshow. This is not saying I don't like Creepshow, but I think Tales from the Dark Side is a better movie.
They both have the Romero connection, though, which is
and King connection, because he wrote the short story that Cat from Hell is based on. I do want to kind of bring up, there's something that I realized while I was doing some research on this. One of the screenwriters behind it, Michael McDowell, he wrote 2 of the segments. He wrote Lot 249 and he wrote Lover's Vow. It makes me really sad because I was looking up information about him, and he was a gay man that was writing a lot of books. He wrote a series of 4 detective novels in the 80s featuring a gay protagonist that was a bartender at night or during the day, and then during the night and a detective at other times. But he wrote this. He worked on a couple episodes of Amazing Stories, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Tales from the Crypt and Tales from the Dark Side. Then he also co-wrote Beetlejuice and the first script that would eventually become A Nightmare Before Christmas. And then what also got me thinking about this, Andrew, was you said you would watch Thinner, and he also collaborated on that adaptation. And then he unfortunately passed away in 1999 from AIDS at the age of 49. And I think about where he would be today if AIDS was not a thing that unfortunately took so many different gay creatives at that time. And it makes me sad because like his output, if you look at his books that he wrote, if you look at the movies that he was attached to, I mean, this is a man that at 49, he had created a hell of a career. And it makes me sad that we don't get to see any more of that.
Yeah, it's a bummer. Even just the ones you named, that's a hell of a resume.
Yeah, it really is.
It's always so sad to think about how AIDS just, like you said, got rid of so many creative minds and creative thinkers and amazing people. And like what the world would have looked like. It's always, don't think about what could have been, but it's hard not to when these amazing creators' lives were cut short.
Yeah, especially when there's so many assholes still making shitty
right?
movies now.
So many assholes, and like our government failed an entire huge groups of people, and it just, again, there's still assholes out there making movies. Cool.
In kind of a little uplifting note, though, he had an unfinished novel that was completed by Tabitha King, Stephen King's wife, and published in 2006.
Oh.
So that's kind of a nice little turnabout because he, worked. Stephen King, it said, Stephen King was quoted as saying that he's like, what did he say? It was the finest writer of paperback originals in America today. So like, it's just like I saw that and I'm like, man, I didn't know about this man. I didn't know anything about him until doing research for this show. And now I really want to go back and read some of his detective novels that he wrote.
Yeah.
It's just, it makes me really like sad, I guess, to think about, because he was diagnosed in 94 and then he passed away 5 years later. And I think about that time of like, he's obviously, I mean, it's not an easy disease to die from. So he was obviously struggling in that 5 year period. And you see that like his one real big output was collaborating on Thinner at that point. And it's just, he passed away in the middle of writing a sequel to Beetlejuice. Like that was what he was working on at the time. So it's just, I mean, not to bring down the podcast on a note on the very end, but it's
too late. What a bummer, Jerry.
I'm sorry.
But it's important to talk about and remember the history.
It is.
Yeah.
So on that note,
sorry,
let's give
guys.
this no, don't apologize. Let's give this our ratings out of 5. Terry,
yeah.
How many stomach cats out of 5 do you give Tales from the Dark Side?
Man, I struggle with the rating from this because my thoughts of this movie are so tinged with nostalgia. But, I will say that while it doesn't get the same credit as Creepshow did, I think, like we said before, I think it's in a lot of ways a better anthology. It's more solid. Each of the segments feels like its own self-contained story. They feel wildly different from each other. And they tackle different themes of love, of the sort of rich people getting their comeuppance, because that was another thing we didn't really talk about the cat one, where he was a pharmaceutical person that had tested all of his stuff on cats. Like, these aren't nice people, and they're getting their comeuppance. And I love that it is that kind of, while it's rated R and it's incredibly gory in a lot of ways, it feels very close to something that would be marketed to kids, especially in like the late 80s. And so I think this movie is great. I think it's held up really well. I think the effects are really well. And I think it showcased a lot of talent that would become huge. I mean, not just even in front of the camera, but I mean, Greg Nicotero worked on the makeup effects. What's his name? Kurtzman. Is it Robert Kurtzman? Worked on the effects and would eventually go on to do like, he's working with Gerald's Game and working with Flanagan and stuff. So these are all like creatives that eventually grew up to be huge in horror. And I think that's fantastic. So I hate to cut a cat in half, but I'm going to give it 4.5 stomach cats out of 5 for me personally. But, maybe 1 to 1.5 of those cats might be nostalgia. But I think I love this movie. What about you, Mary Beth?
I agree, because I mean, I don't even have nostalgia for this movie, and I agree with the 4.5 stomach cats out of 5.
Nice.
I think that
Poor cat.
This is such an amazing display of special effects and like what is so amazing about movies from that era in terms of gore and just experimentation and what things that we don't see as much anymore, and like what people were willing to do to create these amazing films. And it's fun and it's gross and it's everything I love about horror movies. And I just had such a blast watching it, even now as someone who hadn't grown up seeing it, watching it, or like really hearing about it. So I agree with that rating. But Andrew, you have the final word. How many stomach cats out of 5 do you give Tales from the Dark Side? I'm pretty sure I know your answer, but
funny enough, I think I will also go 4.5.
That poor cat.
I was, I mean, they cut it in half for the going into the mouth scene. So
very true. Very true.
I wish I could go 5. I mean, fuck it, I'll go 5.
Hell yeah.
I'll save that.
All right.
Save that
All
half
right.
a cat.
The cat thinks
really
you.
is. It really is I think my favorite anthology. I mean, obviously, I haven't seen a lot of the ones I've seen. It is my favorite horror anthology, and I think all the segments are solid. The last one is just still fucking heartbreaking and amazing at the same time, and just like everything about it is just so good.
Hell yeah. Well,
Hell
thank you.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Andrew, for joining us to talk about Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. And I'm so thankful that you brought this because, again, I love this movie so much. So where can our listeners find you, and what do you have that you'd like to share?
Yeah. First, I would like to apologize to anyone who's made it this far in the podcast. They're really scraping the bottom of the barrel by having me on here.
I've been begging for you to come on for like 9 months.
I'm just shaking my head slowly, just like, God damn it.
They can't see you, Mary. It doesn't count.
You would be surprised how many times I do that after doing this for like a year and a half. I'm like, they can fucking see me. Like, what am I doing?
But
Anyway.
no, seriously, thanks you guys for having me on. People can find me on Twitter with all my hot takes at what's my Twitter? Laptop LaSane, something like that. Laptop_LaSane, I think it is.
Yeah.
I don't tweet myself, so. Or you can find me on Instagram at I Want Custom Shoes. And I guess I should make a note. I recently, during Black History Month, I randomly one morning just decided that I'm not taking any custom sneaker commissions in 2021 that aren't like of black characters in films, or that aren't from films that aren't like, basically if it's a film by like a straight white man with all straight white characters, I won't be making custom shoes for it in this year. Because I want to do more diverse things. I don't know.
Hell yeah.
It has cut down on the number of requests, obviously, but I'm fine with that. I got a full-time job anyway, so.
I love that.
Hell yeah.
So listeners, you've heard from us, but you've heard... Oh, for fuck's sake.
So close.
So close, but so far. So listeners, you've heard from us, but we want to hear from you. What was your experience with Tales from the Dark Side? Which do you prefer, Creepshow or Tales from the Dark Side?
Only
Wrong
one
answers
answer.
not accepted. So send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach out directly to us on Twitter. I am at MB McAndrews.
And I'm a Gaily Dreadful.
And don't forget to follow the podcast on Twitter at Scarred Podcast.
And please review, rate, and subscribe.
Please. Thank you to Eric Power for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our music. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please stay safe out there, but most importantly, stay creepy.
And until next time.
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children? Won't somebody please think of the children? Somebody please think of the children!
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room?
It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together, we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th. We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.